Good afternoon, I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Welcome to Midday Prime. In the next 1 hour, all the stories and updates from India and across the world. India registered a spectacular series win against South Africa. And the harsh terrain of Siachen guarded by Indian Jawans is all set to open for tourists. Also, we'll take a look at updates on the Kartarpur corridor development. All that and more. First, the big news at this hour. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh says Indian coast is adequately guarded by the Navy. Addressing the media after attending Navy Commanders Conference, Rajnath Singh asserts that India has never been aggressor, but its armed forces are capable of giving befitting reply to those who cast evil eye on us. India proposes to sign agreement on Kartarpur on Wednesday, asks Pakistan to reconsider waiving fee on pilgrims. Over 90 heads of foreign missions in India visiting the Golden Temple in Amritsar today. The visit is part of India's efforts to celebrate 550th birth anniversary of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji in a grand manner. Supreme Court grants bail to senior Congress leader and former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram 2 months after he was arrested by the CBI in the INX media corruption case. But Chidambaram continues to stay in Enforcement Directorate's custody. President Ramnath Kovind attends the enthronement ceremony of Japan's Emperor Naruhito in Tokyo. The President also addresses the Indian community in Japan. President Kovind is in Japan in second part of his two-nation visit. International news: after a nail-biter of hard-fought election in which he was dogged by scandals, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to remain in power but with a minority government that will require support of smaller left-leaning party, says Canadians rejected negativity in the elections. And in sports, India clean sweeps the Test series by 3-0 against South Africa. India wins the Ranchi Test by an innings and 202 runs. Ranchi powered by pacer Mohammad Shami and Umesh Yadav. Let's begin with the top story. The United States has said it supports a direct dialogue between India and Pakistan as outlined in the Shimla Agreement, asserting that the chief obstacle to talks remain Islamabad's continued support to extremist groups that engage in cross-border terrorism. The Acting Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asia, Alice G. Wells, told the Subcommittee on Asia, the Pacific and Non-Proliferation of the House Foreign Affairs Committee that during 2006-2007 back-channel negotiations, India and Pakistan reportedly made significant progress on a number of issues, including Kashmir. She further added that we believe that, and I'm quoting her, we believe that direct dialogue between India and Pakistan as outlined in 1972 Shimla Agreement holds the most potential for reducing tensions. She then outlined what the US considers the main obstacle to restart the dialogue process. She says restarting a productive bilateral dialogue requires building of trust, and the chief obstacle remains Pakistan's continued support for extremist groups that engage in cross-border terrorism. Pakistan's harboring of terrorist groups like Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, which seek to foment violence across the line of control, is destabilizing, and Pakistani authorities remain accountable for their actions. She says, we believe the foundation of any successful dialogue between India and Pakistan is based on Pakistan taking sustained and irreversible steps against militants and terrorists in its territory. The United States also had a word on continued violence and terror unleashed by the armed terrorists in the valley. Alice Wells further says that we are concerned about reports of local and foreign militants attempting to intimidate local residents and business owners in order to stymie the normal economic activity. The US condemns the actions of terrorists who seek to use violence and fear to undermine dialogue. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today met Nobel laureate Abhijit Banerjee in New Delhi. In a tweet message, Prime Minister said, "Excellent meeting with Nobel laureate Abhijit Banerjee. His passion towards human empowerment is clearly visible. We had a healthy and extensive interaction on various subjects." India is proud of his accomplishments, wishing him the very best for his future endeavors. And on his part, Abhijit Banerjee said that he was privileged to have met Prime Minister and called it a unique experience for him. He further said that PM is also trying to improve the bureaucracy, which he called a very important thing for India.
Really, it was a privilege to have this meeting with the PM. The PM was kind enough to give me quite a lot of time and to talk a lot about his way of thinking about India, which was quite unique because, you know, one hears about policies, but one rarely hears about the thinking behind it. And he talked about the way he sees governance in particular and why, some sense, maybe the mistrust of the people on the ground colors our governance and how it therefore creates structures of kind of elite control over the governance process, not a responsive government. And in that process, he also, I think, very nicely explained how he's trying to reform the bureaucracy to make it more responsive, to understand the ways in which people's views need to be taken into account, expose them more to the reality on the ground. And that, I thought, was, I think it's a very important point for India to create a bureaucracy that actually lives on the ground and gets its stimulus from how life is on the ground. And without that, we get an unresponsive government. So thank you, PM. That was a unique experience for me.
That was Abhijit Banerjee, Nobel Prize winner for Economics 2019. Moving on, Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh today attended the Navy Commanders Conference in New Delhi. Speaking to the media person thereafter, Rajnath Singh said, India has never been offensive but has never attacked any country of the world. He added that our armed forces have the capability to give befitting reply to those who try to cast evil eye on India.
भारत का एक चरित्र रहा है कि भारत ने दुनिया के कभी किसी देश के ऊपर न तो कभी आक्रमण किया है और न दुनिया के किसी भी देश की 1 इंच जमीन पर भारत ने कभी कब्जा किया है। भारत का एक चरित्र है। लेकिन भारत की हमारी जो सेना है, जो आर्म्ड फोर्सेस हैं, उनके अंदर वह कुव्वत है, वह ताकत है, जो भारत को बुरी नजरों से देखने की कोशिश करेगा, उसका वह मुंहतोड़ जवाब दे सकेगा।
Rajnath Singh also said that the Indian coast is adequately guarded by the Navy. He assured that the Navy has maintained vigilance to ensure that 2611 like incident is not repeated.
मैं पूरी तरह से आश्वस्त हूं कि हमारा ये सी रूट, जो समुद्री क्षेत्र है, वह इंडियन नेवी के हाथों में पूरी तरह से सुरक्षित है। और हमारी इंडियन नेवी का भी यह संकल्प है कि किसी भी सूरत में 26/11 इसकी पुनरावृत्ति न होने पाए या किसी भी सूरत में न दोहराया जा सके, एक ऐसी चाक चौबंद व्यवस्था की है। और आज मुझे यह जानकर बेहद खुशी हुई कि स्वदेशीकरण, इंडियनाइजेशन की तरफ भी हमारी इंडियन नेवी तेजी से बढ़ रही है और हमारी जो शिप्स हैं, आइटम्स लगाने में भी अब काफी कामयाबी उन्होंने हासिल की है।
Earlier, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh said that the government has decided to open the entire area from Siachen base camp to Kumar post for tourism purposes. The step has been taken to boost tourism in Ladakh and give people a window to appreciate the tough work done by army jawans and engineers in extreme weather and inhospitable terrains. The minister was addressing a function in eastern Ladakh to inaugurate the Colonel Chewang Rinchin Bridge on Shalok River, located about 45 kilometers from the country's border with China. Now let's also, we'll try and understand the difficult terrain of Siachen and the meaning for it to open for tourism. So Siachen, as we can see a glimpse of it here, is now going to be open for tourists and tourism. That's what Defence Minister said. Let's try and understand how difficult is the terrain. Siachen Glacier at the height of 20,000 feet in Karakoram range. That is the location of the Siachen Glacier. All that makes it extremely difficult terrain in terms of oxygen, in terms of terrain, the temperatures. We'll take a look at that. It's the highest militarized zone in the world. It's defended by the Indian Defence Forces, particularly after Operation Meghdoot in 1984. We'll refer to that later. Soldiers have to battle frostbite and high winds. So the extreme terrain and the climate that we're talking about, this is the implication: frostbite and high winds. Avalanches and landslides are also common in the glacier. Glacier, remember, it's made of snow, water, so avalanches are pretty common in such a terrain. During winters in particular, temperatures can drop below minus 50 degrees Celsius. You can imagine 0 degree water freezes. Minus 50 degrees Celsius is what our Jawans have to face. In winters in particular, the temperature becomes extremely inhospitable. The army has lost 163 personnel who were martyred in Siachen during the last decade, last 10 years. So it also talks about the kind of terrain that they have to constantly battle in order to protect the nation. India and Pakistan started deploying troops on the glacier in 1984. This is when there were movements. This is just before the Operation Meghdoot that took place in India, took control of the Siachen Glacier as part of Indian territory. Mountaineering expeditions were allowed till 1984. That was the year till which mountaineers expeditions, people who wanted to climb for adventure sports, those were permitted. This was just before Operation Meghdoot that India launched. Operation Meghdoot, glacier came under strategic control of India. The Indian Jawans secured the glacier, and today they continue to stay there and guard Siachen. Tourists can now travel, the new announcement, from Siachen base, that is at 11,000 feet, to Kumar Post, that is 15,000 feet, so about a distance of 4,000 feet. That is the sort of ascent that is going to be there for trekkers and tourists who come. The distance between the two camps, base camp and Kumar Post, is just about 56 kilometers, but on a terrain like this, we can imagine how difficult the movement must be and how important for the adventure seekers. Eco-friendly tourism is going to be extremely important for Siachen. It's a very, very wonderful ecosystem. Glaciers, as we all know, are. So when it opens for tourism, that is going to be important aspect. Revenue generation for both the locals and the government. Tourism is going to be mainstay for Jammu Kashmir, Leh Ladakh, and this is going to be an important part of that. Capability demonstration of our forces. The difficult terrain in which our Jawans work, people will be able to see it up front, not just listen to one another about how difficult the terrain is. They can see up front what challenges they face, and that is likely to also motivate a lot of youngsters who are into adventure sports, who travel to see the Jawans working in difficult terrain, to also motivate to join the defence forces. So we'll be talking about the significance of Siachen opening up for tourists and tourism, and for adventure sports in particular. Joining us in the studio is retired Major General Dhruv Katoch, who's going to tell us more about the terrain, the challenges that the Jawans face. Welcome, sir, to our studio. Good afternoon. So Siachen, which hitherto was referred to in strategic terms, in security terms, now is going to be open for tourists. What are the wide-scale implications that you immediately can think of?
You see, as far as the Siachen Glacier is concerned, I think this has been the hottest and the highest and the most difficult terrain in which battles have ever taken place in the annals of human history. Nowhere have you seen such difficult weather conditions, such heights, where troops have consistently been in battle for many, many years. And I think it goes to the credit of the Indian Army that they have maintained their positions there in such a heroic manner. That is a very mild word to use, but even then I can't find better ways to express it. I think the implications are many now. You see, with the arrival of with the permission being given now for tourists to come to this area, it sends a very strong signal, not just to the people of India but across the world, that the Siachen Glacier is very, very firmly in our control. It is a part of Indian territory, and there is no way in which India is going to let go of it. There had been talks earlier of demilitarized zones, etc., etc. I think all that is history now. It is a very firm claim, and the Indian Army is firmly holding on to the glacier. I would just like to make a small comment as to what holding on to the glacier means. Physically on the Siachen Glacier there are no troops, but on the west of the glacier is the very important ridgeline called the Saltoro ridgeline. Now the Saltoro ridgeline goes up to 23,000 feet. It also has the very famous post called Bana Post, which was captured by India and which was earlier in Pakistani territory, which they would call the Qaid Post. So India captured that, when our units captured that, and it is named after Subedar Bana Singh as Bana Post.
You're referring to Operation Meghdut, sir, in this? This is Operation Meghdut, details that you're sharing.
I think it is very important when we're looking at Saichen that it is sending multiple messages to multiple people.
Right.
It has sent a very clear message to Pakistan, to China, to the world community. More importantly, I think it is also a symbol as far as India is concerned that we will maintain what we have and what is rightfully ours. And I think sending that signal is very important.
Right.
Another message which goes to our public, come, this is also an area where you can go. Obviously, only the very fit people can go, the people with that spirit of adventure.
Right.
The movement will be controlled, but the point is now they can go and see for themselves what it means to be in the highest battlefield of the world.
And so we often speak about Jawans posted in this harsh terrain as, they're isolated there, far away from home, far away from the countrymen. And now for the tourists who are able to manage, as you mentioned, they need to be as fit as the Jawans. There'll be a sense of the Jawans feeling at home. There'll be countrymen going up to Siachen, perhaps also there'll be occasions to interact. So the communication and the distance between the Jawans and the countrymen would also reduce with this.
Yes, well, I think even for the soldiers on the ground, I think
Yes.
it's a very, very strong morale booster.
Certainly.
You see, at this point of time, you're fighting a very lonely battle. Nobody can come there, nobody can see it. I mean, nobody can actually be there. Now, at least some of our countrymen will go. Many of them will write about it. And this message will spread to all our countrymen across the length and breadth of India. Okay, listen, this is where we went, this is what we saw. And in these harsh conditions, our soldiers are operating 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. I think that is the message, and it will be a very strong morale booster for all our troops also.
And so once again, trying to understand the significance of Siachen Army Base as well. Once again, if you can reflect on Operation Meghdut that took place in 1984, and from there on, how crucial has this and a strategically important post has it become for India?
Okay, let me start with the ceasefire line. You see, post 1948 when the ceasefire line was declared, and then you see we had to demarcate this line.
Okay.
Now this line got demarcated all the way up to nearly to the Karakoram Pass, but short of that, to a point which is called NJ 9842. Now from there the going was so difficult, so both the Indian side and the Pakistani side said, we stop here. And then they wrote there, further the line goes north of the glacier. Now north of the glacier is actually the Saltoro Ridge. Now what the Pakistanis did in 1984, they forgot about this north of the glacier bit and they wanted to go east to the Karakoram Pass. And they had actually started sending mountaineering expeditions on their maps to the Karakoram Pass, presuming it to be their territory, which was against the very spirit and ethos of what the agreement stood for. So at this point of time, the Indian Army moved in and we occupied the Saltoro Ridge, most of the posts. Now, once we occupied that, the Pakistanis tried to evict the Indian Army from there, but every single effort of theirs was defeated. So, as a counter, they occupied a very high post which was not occupied by us, which was I think at 23,000 feet, which they called the Qaid Post, based on Jinnah. Okay. We attacked that post and we took it with very great difficulty, and since then Pakistan has not been able to take it back. So now we say that the entire Saltoro Ridge is with India, and to the east of the Saltoro Ridge is the Siachen Glacier, and that connects on to the Karakoram Range. Now the importance is the strategic significance of this area. Had Pakistan been successful and had they occupied the Saltoro Ridge, obviously they could have got a full access to the Siachen Glacier, and they would have been connected to the Karakoram Pass. Now this would have given Pakistan a direct connect with China in this region, in Ladakh. That would have been of great strategic significance to them and would have been at a great cost to India. So it is fortunate that the Indian Army, we moved in well in time. The first expedition which was carried out in that area was done by Colonel Kumar, one of the greatest soldiers which we had, one of the greatest mountaineers, and he went there as a proper mountaineering expedition. Okay. Today we have troops staying there throughout the year.
I keep staying there, so using different references, it's going to be extremely cold, minus 50. It's really unimaginable sitting in Delhi to imagine what minus 50 degrees Celsius, landslides and frostbite must mean in Siachen. If you could give us some more insights as to what the soldiers have to endure in Siachen and what the adventure sports seeker should think of when they think of planning to go to Siachen.
You see, for the adventure sports seeker, they are only going to be there for a limited period of time.
Yes.
So you see, they go, it is something like going to Everest, climbing the peak, putting the flag and coming
That's
back.
right, yeah.
That itself is a very great achievement. But imagine now that you have to live on the top of Everest for a very long period of time. Now that is a completely different game. Now you see, there are some posts there which are just say about 10 feet by 10 feet where 4 men have to live. They can only enter into that bunker by crawling, and they have to stay there for 3 months. Now these things it's very, very difficult for anybody to imagine what those living conditions are.
And how food and water, these basic necessities, how they manage, sir?
So you see, you know, out there everything freezes, and the thing is, even the human waste doesn't decompose. So you got to have a system of ensuring how the waste is disposed of, how your food is heated. So every single aspect, from breathing to simple living to eating, is a challenge in that area. And I think once you actually start understanding what those challenges are, it's very difficult to understand what those challenges are unless one has physically been through it. But I think it is certainly the most challenging area. Even without an enemy there, living there is a challenge, and living there with an enemy firing on you, I think, is a completely different ball game. Well, it is a very challenging area, and I'm glad that some of our countrymen, at least the fitter ones, will get a chance to go there, and I hope they write about what they see.
Right, and sir, tourism also means that there's going to be development of tourist infrastructure, the necessary infrastructure that may be required for adventure sports. How do you think that would be transformative for the region? Also, we're talking about Jammu Kashmir and Ladakh after abrogation. Tourism is seen as one of the mainstays of really kick-starting development in the region again. From that perspective, how do you see it?
You see, I'm thinking not just the Siachen Glacier, this entire Ladakh region.
Yes.
It is so beautiful. I mean, if you have to really go there and to see what the beauty is. So I think now, and the people are abysmally poor because there are no avenues. I think tourism offers a very great avenue, but it should be done with a great deal of caution. That means it cannot be done in such a manner that the ecology gets upset. So it has to be a controlled tourism, but it has to be done the way it is done in Switzerland, where a large number of people can go and they come back in a particular time frame. Those hotels have to come up in those specific areas, and it will provide a great many job opportunities, both in the hotel industry, both as guides, even as people who can escort people on mountaineering expeditions in those areas. So I think it is going to be a big leg up to everybody, but most importantly, I think because we are physically sending our civilian brothers and sisters to the border, I think the borders get better protected in that sense. So the movement of civilians right far ahead, I think is a very positive step, and I hope it is done. It has started now, and I hope it will be done with the correct spirit, and the ecology aspects will also be maintained.
All right, so there are many positive really implications and impacts of Siachen opening up for tourism there. Sir, thank you very much for joining us in our studios and giving us those insights. Moving on with India all set to go ahead on signing of the Kartarpur Agreement on 23rd October 2019, no matter the hurdles. Pakistan, on the other hand, continues with its decision of charging a fee of $20 US per person. Ministry of External Affairs has expressed disappointment on the decision, but says India will go ahead with the agreement for now, as the first batch of pilgrims is set to visit the Kartarpur Sahib Gurudwara to the much-awaited corridor set to open next month. The differences over the fee had resulted in a delay in launching of the online registration for the first pilgrimage on November 9th. Extremely disappointed with the current developments, Union Minister Harsimrat Kaur has slammed Pakistan for its insistence on charging service fee from Indian pilgrims, saying the neighbouring country has made a business out of faith. She said such service charge to visit a religious place was unheard of anywhere in the world. Pakistan is building the corridor from the Indian border to Gurudwara Darbar Sahib in Kartarpur, while India is building it from Dera Baba Nanak in Gurdaspur to its border with a neighbouring country. The corridor will be opened in November to coincide with Guru Nanak Dev's 550th birth anniversary celebrations. Meanwhile, 90 heads of foreign missions in New Delhi are visiting Golden Temple in Amritsar today to take part in celebrations related to 550th birth anniversary of Sikh faith founder Guru Nanak Dev. Following the decision by the Union Cabinet to celebrate the 550th birth anniversary of Guru Nanak Dev across the globe, the Indian Council for Cultural Relations has invited heads of foreign missions in New Delhi to visit the Golden Temple in Amritsar. The visit is being organized by ICCR in collaboration with the Punjab government and the Shiromani Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee. Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri and ICCR President Vinay Sahasrabudhe are accompanying the heads of missions. Some other news now. The Supreme Court has granted bail to former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram today, 2 months after he was arrested by the CBI in the INX Media corruption case. A bench headed by Justice R. Bhanumati set aside the Delhi High Court's September 30th verdict denying him bail in the corruption case. The bench, also comprising Justices A.S. Bopanna and Rishikesh Roy, granted bail to Chidambaram and a personal bond of ₹1 lakh with one surety of the like amount. The top court said Chidambaram be released on bail if not required in any other case. The bench made it clear that Chidambaram will not leave the country without prior permission of the court and make himself available for interrogation as and when called by the probe agency. The bench clarified its observation in order granting bail to Chidambaram in the INX Media corruption case would not have any bearing in other pending cases against him. He is currently in Enforcement Directorate's custody in connection with a separate money laundering case. P. Chidambaram was arrested in connection with the graft case on August 21st by the CBI, which charged him and the others, including his son Karthi and some bureaucrats, for causing loss to the Exchequer for allegedly committing offences under Prevention of Corruption Act and of the Indian Penal Code. Moving on, Supreme Court today directed for all the cases concerning regulation of social media to be transferred from the High Courts to itself. The order was passed in the transfer petition filed by Facebook and WhatsApp seeking transfer of various pending cases to the Supreme Court. The court was informed that the state of Tamil Nadu is not opposed to the transfer of the case to the Supreme Court. The primary case concerning linkage of Aadhaar with social media and WhatsApp traceability is pending before the Madras High Court. Centre has sought time till January 15 next year for finalising social media norms to make intermediary more liable and accountable. The Apex Court then fixed the next date of hearing for the last week of January 2020. Some weather-related update. With the northeast monsoon underway in Tamil Nadu, the Met Department has issued a red alert in 4 districts of the state. The district administration in Theni, Coimbatore, Nilgiris and Dindigul have been cautioned against heavy rainfall in districts and have been directed to take action in advance to prevent any rain-related incident. 4 districts are expected to receive more than 15 centimeters of rainfall during the monsoon from today. Meanwhile, Kerala is also battling floods as rivers flowing through the state have swelled up after heavy downpour in the region. This is due to the northeast monsoon becoming active over the region. The Indian Met Department has issued an orange alert for heavy rains in the state, directing the state administration to step up action. An orange alert by the IMD means be prepared to face any situation arising out of severe weather condition. The districts which have got an IMD alert include Kollam, Alappuzha, Kottayam, Idukki, Ernakulam, Thrissur, Palakkad, Malappuram, Kozhikode, Wayanad, Kannur and Kasaragod. IMD has predicted heavy rainfall over Kerala the next few days. The fishermen in particular have been warned not to go out to sea as squally weather with wind speed reaching 45 to 55 km per hour is likely to prevail over the Kerala coast. Japanese Emperor Naruhito formally proclaimed his ascension to the throne on Tuesday in centuries-old ceremony attended by dignitaries from more than 180 countries. The first Japanese emperor born after World War II, Naruhito acceded to the throne when his father Akihito became the first Japanese monarch to abdicate in 2 centuries after worrying that advancing age might make it hard for him to perform the official duties. President Ramnath Kovind, along with hundreds of foreign dignitaries, including UK's Prince Charles, attended the enthronement ceremony of the Japanese emperor. Naruhito's grandfather, Hirohito, in whose name Japanese troops fought World War II, was treated as God, but he renounced his divine status after Japan's defeat in 1945. emperors in Japan now have no dual political authority. And time now for all the updates from the world of business and finance. My colleague Nancy Kohli is joining us. Nancy, over to you.
Yes, Shubhendu, thanks. And big news taking place across the business sector in the country. The IT major Infosys has registered its biggest fall in over 6 years on the Ladakh Strait after a letter by anonymous employees surfaced accusing the Chief Executive Officer Salil Parekh and the Chief Financial Officer Nilanjan Roy of unethical practices for several quarters. In fact, the scrip tanked 14% to trade at 658 rupees against the previous close of 767 rupees. It also hit an intraday low of 645 rupees. And prior to this fall, the stock had its biggest fall of 21.3% on 12th of April 2013. This was the 16th time that the stock has tanked in double digit in a single day since January 2000. Although Infosys has said it will conduct an independent probe into the allegations of unethical practices by its CEO to boost the short-term revenue and profits. Here's a report. Infosys has been hit by turbulence again. An anonymous group calling themselves Ethical Employees has alleged that the firm has been sprucing up its books to show better revenue and profit numbers. In a letter to the Infosys board and the US Securities Exchange Commission, they have targeted the CEO Salil Parekh with forcing the finance team to take a number of steps that go against standard accounting practices. They alleged irregularities in large deals like Verizon, ABN AMRO and a joint venture in Japan, saying revenue recognition was not as per accounting standards. The letter alleged that in the last quarter they were asked not to fully recognize costs like the visa cost to improve profits. The letter also alleged how important metrics in large deals and other financial information was suppressed as well. A statement by the IT Services Joint Chairman and the Nilekani to the stock exchanges on Tuesday said that the company's audit committee will conduct an independent investigation on the whistleblower allegations of CEO Salil Parekh and the CFO Nilanjan Roy indulging in unethical practices to boost short-term revenue and profits. Nilekani said that the board, in consultation with the audit committee, will take such steps as may be appropriate based on the outcome of the investigation. Bureau Report, DD News. We'll continue tracking that story, but moving on now. Well, if you're planning to buy a car this Diwali, then there may be some good news for you. And India's largest bank, the SBI, and other PSU banks are organizing the Loan Mela for its customers. And this Loan Mela began on the 21st of October and ends on the 25th. The SBI tweeted to inform that the banks are organizing the customer outreach initiative, and under the initiative, camps will be organized which will help provide loan facilities and other banking services to the people. An update now on the gold prices, which have fallen for the third day in a row, tracking muted global cues. On the MCX, gold prices were down 0.11% to 37,850 rupees per 10 grams, and after hitting highs of about 40,000 rupees last month, the gold prices have fallen sharply and are now about 2,150 rupees per gram from their record highs. In fact, silver prices were also muted today, down 0.1% to 45,387 rupees per kilogram. In the global markets, gold prices were flat at $1,484 per ounce as the global equity market sentiment improved as stocks cheered progress in the trade talks between the US and China. And that's all the business news this afternoon. Shubhendu, it's back to you for the rest of the news.
Thanks very much, Nancy, for joining us with those inputs. And let's now find out what's making news across the world. News first from Canada. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party held on to power in a nail-biter of parliamentary election, but as a weakened minority government, television projections declared the Liberals winners, or leading in 157 of the nation's 333 electoral districts versus 121 for his main rival Andrew Scheer and the Conservatives after polling stations across 6 time zones closed. today will now soon have to form an alliance or a formal coalition with one or more smaller parties in order to govern. 47-year-old former school teacher dominated the Canadian politics over the 4 years of his first term, but has faced grilling also during the 40-day election campaign, which was described as one of the nastiest in the Canadian history. His golden boy image has also been significantly damaged by ethics lapses in handling of bribery prosecution of engineering giant SNC Lavalin, while the emergence of old photographs of him in backface makeup also in a way rocked his campaign. The first test of his future government will be to follow in the subsequent weeks with a speech to Parliament outlining his new legislative priorities and also a confidence vote. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has failed to form government following an inconclusive repeat parliamentary election last month, opening the door for his main rival Benny Gantz to get a chance to become the country's next leader. President Reuven Rivlin said he would give Gantz, the former army chief, the mandate to try to become Prime Minister after Netanyahu failed to muster support of 61 members in a 120-member Knesset. Netanyahu, who was first tasked with forming the next government by Rivlin by virtue of support of 55 members compared to Gantz's 54, announced on Monday evening that he cannot cobble a government together and was returning the mandate. Prime Minister made the announcement 2 days before the end of 28-day deadline given to present a coalition. Netanyahu, 70 years old, broke the news of returning the mandate to Rivlin in a video message published on his official Facebook page. Thousands of Chileans poured into Santiago's central squares on Monday to protest against the prevailing inflation and also high living cost in the country, and waving signs calling for the ouster of President. Almost after a weekend of looting, arson and clashes with security forces that killed nearly 11 people and prompted President Sebastián Piñera to declare the country at war with vandals, there seems to be no end to the protest. Buses and metro networks were partially restored for normal network and work, but people opted instead to join the biggest demonstrations in years. The protests were watched from the sidelines by the soldiers and police and hovered over by helicopters. Meanwhile, in other parts of the country, Valparaiso, near the capital, police used gunshots to disperse protesters and responded with water cannons as they threw rocks at the police. After a fresh curfew was imposed to run till Tuesday in the city, the recent spur was sparked by protests over hike in public transport fares, but reflects also the simmering anger, the intense economic equality as it exists in Chile. And time now for all the action from the world of sports. Let's talk about cricket. India put on a superb performance in the third test against South Africa and Ranchi to complete a 3-0 whitewash. India's 497 for 9 proved to be too much for South Africa, even over 2 innings, as they were knocked over 162, then 133. The victory sees India maintain their perfect record in Test Championship, World Test Championship, with 5 wins out of as many matches.
Warangiri.
A formidable Indian team ticked all boxes with ease as they completed a 3-0 rout of South Africa with a comprehensive innings and 202 runs victory in the third and final test match in Ranchi. The scoreline was not only an indicator of India's absolute dominance, but also the decline in standards of South African cricket, as they could not handle the might of India's batting and the fiery India pace attack led by Mohammad Shami. Debutant Shehbaz Nadeem wrapped it up in the second over on day 4 as South Africa were all out for 133 in their second innings, 30 runs short of their dismal first innings score of 162. This is India's 6th clean sweep at home in a 3-test series, and India did not put a foot wrong during the 3-match series, winning the first test by 203 runs and the second one by an innings and 137 runs. If Rohit Sharma's coming of age in his new role as an opener with 529 runs turned out to be a masterstroke in home conditions, Mayank Agarwal also consolidated his place in the side with a double century and a ton, easing India's long-time opening woes. However, what stood out during the series was how lethal the Indian pace attack looked, despite their premier pacer Jasprit Bumrah's absence due to a stress fracture.
If Ravindra Jadeja and Ravichandran Ashwin shared 28 among themselves, Mohammad Shami, Umesh Yadav and Ishant Sharma picked 26 wickets. The victory sees India maintain the perfect record in the World Test Championship with 5 wins out of as many matches. They are on top of the table with 240 points, comfortably ahead of second-placed New Zealand. Sports Desk, DD News.
Meanwhile, South African captain Faf du Plessis said that Team India completely outplayed them and heaped rich praises on India's bowling attack in particular. He further added that Indian seamers were outstanding through the series, be it batting, bowling or fielding. And I quote him, he said, "We were dominated completely."
The way the Indian seamers especially showed us as a South African fast bowling attack how to bowl speaks a lot of volume for the way that they bowled this series. You know, the pace that they bowled, the consistency that they bowled, the skill that they showed, outclassed us as a fast bowling attack. And there's learning for us in that when we play in the subcontinent, that our style of bowling is not successful. You have to adapt your style to the style that is required.
And now my colleague Tapesh Bhattacharya is joining us from the newsroom to talk more about India's stupendous performance in the Test match. Tapesh, what a match, what a series now. When a win of this stature happens, many records are broken and made afresh. Let's first talk about how this is India's one of the most comprehensive Test wins in the recent times and against South Africa ever since the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And since the time India, South Africa started playing Test cricket from 1992 onward, when they started, they established cricketing ties. Since then, this is the first time they had a 3-match series, and that too was when a whitewash. There was basically Indian team thrash, and 3-0 scoreline shows a lot. In 2015, yes, the Indian team won 3-0, but it was a 4-match series. So technically, this is what you call the first time a whitewash happened when it comes to India or South Africa. And also, the margin of defeat in these Test matches is something that must worry South Africa and will give a lot of confidence to the Indian team. This is in fact the 4th highest margin of defeat by South Africa in their history. So that in that sense you have to give credit to the Indian bowlers, because remember, in Test cricket, if you want to win, you have to take 20 wickets in both the innings. So Indian pacers especially, you have to give credit to them, the way they bowl, the way they relentlessly pursue excellence in this Test series, bowling the stumps, making sure that the South African batsmen have no place to hide.
Would you say, Tapesh, that Indian seamers have really come of age? Because what you're saying was also said by the South African captain. He said that the seamers were outstanding in particular. So are there some key learnings that Indian pacers have learnt over the time, and they've sort of implemented it perfectly this time?
So this is what you call the coming of age of Indian pacers. Let's just say then from the Kapil Dev's era till now, we had some pacers, we had some express pacers also. Let's just say we had Javagal Srinath and Venkatesh Prasad. The combination, Javagal Srinath was quite a steady customer. We had some other pacers also, but right now Indian team is spoiled for choices. You got Bumrah, you got Umesh Yadav, you got Ishant Sharma, you got Mohammad Shami. Each and every pacer has it in them to take 5-wicket haul, 10-wicket hauls, and that is something that augurs well for India when they tour outside. We always had great spinners in the side. There is no denying that part. India is a land of spinners, and Indian spinners have always picked up wickets. And whenever people, for teams used to come to India, they used to prepare themselves to play good spinners. But now it is the pacers who are giving you the breakthrough at the top of the order, even in the middle overs, where even if the spinners are not making much of a headway, the pacers actually come, and it's just not the way to pick up the wickets. They actually pulverize the Indian the opposition batsmen, and that something that opposition is taking note of.
Right, Tapesh, also we're showing visuals of the victory celebrations. Captain Kohli lifting the cup. He'll be a happy man along with the entire team. He's been in stupendous form personally, and now he also becomes the most successful Test captain for India.
Absolutely, and there is no denying the fact that as of now, this Indian team is one of the most balanced one. Why do I say? Well, if you take a look at the opening pair, Rohit Sharma and Karwal has done some real good batting at the top of the order, and that's kind of settled the whole idea of who will open the batting. We always had a strong middle order, but the problem that we have faced in Test cricket was who will open the batting, and that's something that Rohit Sharma and Karwal have shown in this Test series, that if the team management pursue with them, they are an amazing talent. Rohit Sharma has always been a brilliant player in this series. He has shown that he has come of age, and Test cricket, he welcomed Test cricket.
Well, Taposhan, if we were to reflect on the performance of the opponent, South Africa are a very respectable side. They can, on a good day, give competition to the best teams, but this series has been disastrous for them. Very briefly, what will be the key points on which they would need to reflect on?
Well, just for South Africa, they could have, whenever they were in the accident, they let the situation slip away. Be it in the first Test match when they scored more than 400 runs, or for that matter, even in this Test match when Kagiso Rabada and the South African Pacers picked up 3 wickets in the first hour or so. At that time, Indian bowlers, or for that matter even Indian batsmen, actually made sure that they don't let the momentum slip away, and that's where South Africa actually faltered. Not just in this series, and in fact, if you take a look at South Africa, they are a side who are who are trying to establish themselves once again. A lot of their star players have retired, have taken retirement, and so this is a very young side. It will take a couple of years for them to once again get a whole idea of what international cricket is all about, but you do expect a lot from some of their senior players, especially Kagiso Rabada, Faf du Plessis, and other players, but unfortunately they didn't show much of a fight in this series. Hopefully when they visit next time, we will find a different South African team.
Right, a lot to really think about for South Africa, but much to cheer for India. Thanks very much, Taposh, for joining us for that chat. Moving on, once again, Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi got shortlisted for men's Ballon d'Or alone with 28 other names. But unfortunately, last year's Ballon d'Or winner Luka Modric failed to make it to the shortlist. The awards will be presented on December 2nd.
Premier League players dominated nomination for men's Ballon d'Or award after the 30-man shortlist was announced throughout Monday, while French side Lyon had 6 nominees in a shortlist of 20 female players for the women's award. The award ceremony crowning the winners will be held in French capital on December 2nd. 4 awards will be handed out on the night, with the best men's and women's player honoured alongside Copa Trophy for under-21s and Yashin Trophy for goalkeepers. Last year's winner Luka Modric failed to make the shortlist, but Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi and UEFA Player of the Year Virgil van Dijk are nominated as expected. So far, the award has seen the domination of Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, and both of them have won 5 times each. Whosoever will win the award this time will be the first player to claim the most Ballon d'Or. Sports Desk, DD News.
I'm waiting for a short break. Do stay with us. Welcome back, you're watching Video Prime. Let's now find out what's in store in Live Prime today. Let's talk about IFFI. Movie buffs will have a treat at the 50th International Film Festival of India, also known as IFFI, announced to screen some of the world's best cinema produced also in Hindi film industry. The open screening at Goa will feature classic comedies from Padosan to Andaz Apna Apna to big blockbusters like Gully Boy, the recent ones, Uri, Surgical Strike, on the theme of the joy of cinema. A total of 14 movies will be screened at two venues, Joggers Park, Altino and Miramar Beach in Goa. The festival will run from 21st November to 27th November. Close to 250 films from various countries are going to be screened at the premier movie extravaganza. This year, Dadasaheb Phalke Award winner Amitabh Bachchan selected 7 or 8 films will also be showcased at this movie gala. The trailer of the finale Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, has been released during the halftime of the Patriots and the Jets American football match on ESPN on what would have been Carrie Fisher's 63rd birthday. The release will mark the actress's last appearance in the film series. The film will wrap up the 9-film story which began with Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope in 1977. The film is set to release in the theatres on 20th December this year.
Good people will fight if we lead them.
People keep telling me they know me. No one does.
But I do.
The widespread impact of Ayushman Bharat scheme is being seen all across the country. Under the scheme, Health and Wellness Centre have been opened in Papumpare, district of Arunachal Pradesh. This centre is not only providing medical advice and consultation to common people, but it's also proving helpful in fulfilling the goal of making India healthy. Take a look at this special ground report from Papumpare district of Arunachal.
In Arunachal Pradesh's Papumpare district, people are getting their checkups done at the Health and Wellness Centre, especially women who are visiting these centres with their newborns, as these centres also provide vaccination facilities for children. Pasang, a resident of Papumpare, says that earlier she had to travel very far to get checkups and tests done, but with the opening of the Health and Wellness Centre, better health related services are now available near her home.
हम लोग का यहाँ में मेडिकल खोल के हम लोग के लिए बहुत अच्छा हो गया। पहले तो हम लोग नालागन ईटानगर जाता था, कभी कभी दवाई लेने के लिए भी पैसा नहीं है, बाहर जाने के लिए भी पैसा नहीं है। यहाँ में आके हम लोग के लिए अच्छा हो गया, मेडिकल भी सामने हो गया, दवाई भी आगे तरह यहाँ में मिल रही फ्री में भी।
At the Papumpare Health and Wellness Centre, along with health checkup facility, pharmacy facility is also available. Now people don't have to travel far to buy medicines.
मेडिकल का भी बीमा संभर होने से दवाई फ्री भी दे देता है और गवर्नमेंट डॉक्टर और भी अच्छा कर देने से हो जाएगा ना।
With the Ayushman Bharat scheme, remote areas of the country are also now getting easy and timely services of expert doctors, and people don't have to get worried trying to get medical facilities. This has brought about a revolutionary change in the country's health sector. Bureau Report, DD News.
And with that, we conclude this edition of Midday Prime. News and updates continue after a short break. Namaskar.